All right, we are live. Usually it's a little bit behind here on the stream, but I want to see it come in here. There's one person waiting. Is there a chat? Oh, yeah, I hear myself now.
Who's here?
Gotta turn that off. Two people watching. All right. Hey, good evening.
Hello. Or the show hasn't started yet.
No. Well, I'll get a timestamp for when we actually get things started, but we can ease our way in a little bit here. I want to wait at least until actual 9:30 so that nobody gets unhappy with us for starting too quick.
No, fair enough.
Any of my fellow Montembeau owners sound off in the chat. We can commiserate about how he cost us more than a goal today.
That's my home league.
Sham said he would spend a lot of fab to pick him up, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. He's probably going to start a lot of games. The team is okay, although they looked really uninterested today, unfortunately.
I've seen some really terrible-looking defensive underlying numbers for Montreal as a whole.
Yeah, it's been nasty. You know, my opponent has only one goalie, and he's not even a real starter. I don't know why I'm dragging around Montembeau when I could just stream someone in and, have Vasilevsky main guy. It is. It really is. I have 2 open defensive slots right now because I don't need them. And because my defense is so ravaged by injury, it's like, why carry around these bottom of the lineup guys? Although I have this secret soft spot for Marcus Patterson, and he got an assist today. So he's a surprisingly reliable guy. I like him.
That's Jonas Brodin for me. It's just good peripherals.
Yeah, definitely. I'm getting a little bit of I don't know what to call it, but a little bit of waver in the voice. Just make sure when you are, getting into it and discussing, to make sure that you're staying facing towards your device so that it can capture you as best as possible. Because when I see you turn to the sides, and I do this too, even with this mic, so I just want to keep that in mind. But I think that'll help with the overall sound quality. I'll never notice the difference, but Elon can hear a pin drop. So I'm half deaf from years of trombones blasting into the back of my head. So it's never going to be something that I would hear. All right. Thanks, Patty. Appreciate you working to work on our fellow listeners here. I'm trying to look where this discussion is taking place. Get in here. All right. Oh my God. Brandon Montour, have mercy. He's making Ovi's start look pedestrian by comparison.
Do I need to go look at who's scoring recently?
Oh my Lord. I just got hat tricked with an assist by Montour. He's got twice Ovi's points. Leave me alone. I'm playing this other 0-3 guy, and I just want to get one freaking victory, please. Maybe Kaprizov will get an empty netter assisted by Eriksson.
Did Raquel get a hat trick, or is that just 2 goals from Raquel?
I saw at least 2. I can go to my previous week's opponent and see because he had Raquel. Glad I dodged him this week. Yeah, 2 goals, 4 shots, and that's without Malkin, right?
No, is Malkin missing tonight?
No, I thought Malkin was up on the wing with
Crosby and Raquel.
Oh, Crosby and Raquel. Okay, yeah, that's a sweet spot for him.
Yep,
cashing in. Oh my God. Montour has 4 goals on the season, and 3 of them are tonight. What the hell?
And another one. Okay, you just caught it.
Yeah, that's the one. Ugh. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I am still ahead. I can still win my week. Serenity now. All right. Hey, let's get the show started. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Cool. All right. Let me split my screen here so I've got StreamYard so I can see the chat here. All right. What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, the runner of the Keeping Karlsson accountability account that keeps us all honest. We've got Trev here tonight. Trev, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Hello, Louis. It's good to be on, I guess, the other side of the host accountability relationship. We'll see how my takes end up aging.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like people will be gunning for you. You know, you get an opportunity to watch the Watchmen here. It'll be an opportunity to pick apart some of those other takes there. Not me. I would never, especially because I don't want my takes to look. I'll restart that. Especially because I don't want to have my takes looked at too especially closely. I had Ryan in my ear today saying we might have missed it a little bit with Leo Karlsson, who has continued to be okay for the Ducks. So high five to being okay, I suppose. But we have lots to get to. Let's jump right into it here. I think the first kind of really interesting development we've had since Sunday's mega show, and if this is your first time listening to Short Shifts, thank you for being here. And yeah, we are a twice weekly short shift in between Elon and Brian's humongous mega shows. You get Shams and Jeremy on Thursday, and myself and a rotating cast of characters. It's been a blast having guests in. So thank you for joining us. But I want to talk about the Leafs lines and power plays. We saw a different setup that we hadn't seen previously. They had a pretty good outcome, maybe allowed a little too much defensively, but came out with the win. Trev, tell me a little bit about what you noticed from these lines, from the new power play configuration. Do you like it? Is it freaking you out? What do you see here?
All right, so I guess I'll tell you what the power plays were for the first thing. It was Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Max Pacioretty, Matthew Nyes, and Morgan Riley on the first unit. And then it was, I know OEL and Bobby McMahon and Nylander and John Tavares, and I'm missing somebody, but that was on the second unit. And during the game, we ended up with a 60-40 split of power play time, which I think is probably a blow to, I guess, the core four, because they usually ran like a 75% share power play beforehand. And in terms of guys that benefit, I think that maybe you're looking at Nyes as, someone who, was never getting a sniff at the power play before. And because of this, getting 60% of the power play now, that holds. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I had among the folks that I wanted to kind of identify as someone who I like there, I had Pacioretty as one that stood out to me as pretty interesting. He had 3 assists in that new setup, although he didn't get any on that power play. He played a full 90 seconds more than any other game that he had played this season and 3.5 minutes more than his season average, although to be fair, that season average has been really, really low. I would check the lines before the game, but if the setup sticks, and I have an inkling that it might, at least for a little while, because we have this recent success, so why not build off of it, keep it there. So I would think about maybe adding patches. I wouldn't drop a long-term guy. This is like for your streamer set. But as soon as he's back to those single-digit minutes per game, I think you toss him off the roster. I think Nyes has had so much exposure. Certainly in Cupful, Nyes is mostly picked up if you're in a shallower league or you have fewer managers out there in the Yahoo verse. Or Fantrax, certainly. I think, grab him if he's out there, because I think that's a really interesting spot. But yeah, it's Pacioretty who looks like he's getting the biggest boost here, getting some line 2 power play 1 action, even if that power play 1 is maybe not as strong as it has been in the past because of having more of a split and having a little less time out there. Speaking of ice time, we talked a bit about Pacioretty's, but Nylander was someone who came up. These were, I think I saw in the Dava Ramblings maybe this morning. But Nylander is averaging close to 2 minutes less ice time per game than last season. Still on an 82 game point pace, which is nice. It's not the 98 points that he earned last year. Do you see that as a concern? Is it just, has he been a casualty of the lines moving around a little bit? Obviously, this is a fairly small sample size. Any thoughts on Nylander's reduced role, especially having been demoted to power play 2?
I think like again, being a 40% share of of power play versus 75 to 4, and then you lose a little bit of even strength time on ice. Like, yeah, it's maybe that's enough to take you down from, hey, I think Nylander is going to be 100-point guys, and maybe he's in the mid to high 80s or something like that. Which that's not what you drafted when you went for William Nylander early on in drafts. So I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think I'm a little concerned too. It is, again, I don't think it's something that's going to stick. I think we'll see those core 4, as you said, back in their usual spot. But for however long it lasts, almost couldn't spit that one out. I do think that each game of this configuration does reduce a little bit the ceiling on Nylander. So might be a bit of a concern. Another player who is also seeing some reduced ice time, and I guess we were going to talk about him in the hot players section, but maybe we can knock it out here. Cole Caulfield also down about 2 minutes per game, although he is on pace for his best season ever in points for reasons that I know you are aware of and can talk to me about in just a moment. I think maybe we've seen a little more chaos in the Montreal lines. Obviously Slavkovsky got hurt, but he came back and supposedly was going to be a second liner, but in pretty quick order, he was a first liner again in a pretty horrible game. I think they're losing now 8-1 to the Kraken. 8-2, I think, is going to be probably our final. Really ugly. Another horrible game for Montembeault. The defense just looked like, crud, but hey, guess what? Cole Caulfield scored. No big surprise there. So Caulfield, as far as that ice time reduction, again, are we concerned about that, or is it going to be something that is going to pass? That's the top line for sure. Maybe we're not worried about it too much.
So this is one that I really looked into, and looking into the low-ish time on ice. I think it mostly has to do with Montreal taking a few too many penalties and also being very successful on the power play. So Caulfield, he's still getting the most even strength time, but you're just not going to put your undersized scoring winger on the penalty kill. And if you score right away on the power play, you're cutting down on your time on ice as well. So add those two things together, and you end up with a little bit less time on ice. In terms of, I guess, do you want to knock out the super hot start?
Sure. So yeah, we got burying the lead a little bit here, but yes, he is on pace for his greatest season ever. But he is shooting 31% right now, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say if Brian were here, he would tell us that is not a sustainable amount. That is a small sample size and way too much scoring. It's about double his usual. Actually, it's about double his career best. I'm sorry, not double even his average. So yeah, that's going to come down. And I'm a little worried about the fact that he's only got 1 assist. He's not getting a ton of help from the others. So, I think that maybe even a little more concerned about Caulfield because he's not seeing a demotion exactly. You listed some reasons that made sense for why he might be seeing a little bit less ice. But still clearly, the number one guy, the guy, capital T, capital G. So I'm almost a little more worried about Caulfield than I am about Nylander, just because I feel like things will get back to normal in Toronto, and I feel like this might be the normal in Montreal. So a little bit of a concern there.
Don't get me wrong. I was Caulfield's biggest booster going into going into drafts this year. But I thought his path to be, a very valuable fantasy asset had a lot to do with him being a guy that shot 4 times a game, and he's not even shooting 3 times a game right now. And yeah, so you know, I don't think the bender he's currently on is sustainable, but hopefully he gets back to shooting 4 times a game and can keep the at least the fantasy points coming in, even if he doesn't shoot 30%.
Yeah, and if Slavkovsky gets back to his scoring ways, maybe we can see a few more assists. He won't be end up as a Cy Young candidate. I'm going to actually pause for a second here. I've got a child who wants to ask me a question. One sec.
Okay.
All right, I'm back here. So about a minute, so we'll be back at 16:40. All right, another team that has had some interesting line changes here. Line combo that we have not seen since, I think, 2014, I read. Tell us a little bit about what is going on lately with the Pittsburgh Penguins and what they are up to.
So the Pittsburgh Penguins have decided to stack one top line, and they put Malkin, Crosby, and Raquel on the top line and top power play. And not a super fantasy relevant point, but I think there's a prevailing theory that when superstars start to age, they and the points start to go away, they change their game to become more defensively responsible. And Crosby and Malkin did not choose to follow this path, with their underlying numbers for years being kind of bad. So my personal theory is that instead of having two, lines that aren't super great defensively, they decided to stack an offensive line and then hopefully, play some defense. As for fantasy, which that's what we're talking about, I think this is a really, really a very good spot for Rickard Rakell. And looking at tonight's game, he's already put up 2 assists and 4 shots, so already being proven right from my notes.
Yeah, 2 goals actually, even better. So love to see that
okay.
from Raquel getting dished the puck by these 2 ultra skilled centers. And I saw Elon saying, "Oh, I just can't wait until Malkin gets that left wing eligibility. That's going to be extra tasty." So the Twitter brigade, get out there and harass the fantasy support people until we start to see some of these changes. I saw that someone in the Keeping Karlsson Discord may be responsible for JJ Peterka's left wing eligibility. So thank you. I wish I knew off the top of my head who it was, but solid work out there. Badger those Yahoo people until they give us the line or the position eligibility that we want. One last interesting elevation. We saw Logan Cooley elevated to line 1 in Utah in place of Nick Schmaltz. Still, Schmaltz getting that time on the top power play. 1 assist, 2 shots. He did win 8 faceoffs, and he had about 44% of the available power play time on ice. So not a huge outing, but he did see 3 more minutes of ice time than any game this season other than the first. It was a game that saw the San Jose Sharks come all the way back from being down, I think 4-1 in the third period, like with 5 minutes to go. So it was an ugly finish, and I don't know if we know what that means for Cooley's long-term sustainability in terms of deployment. But I like him while he's there. I think that is before you take a risk, especially if you're in a shallower league where you're having to drop someone pretty decent to pick up Cooley. I think I would wait and see, what Utah wants to do next. If they are going to keep this, or if giving San Jose their first win of the season in overtime means they would rather revert back to what they were doing before.
Yeah, losing to San Jose feels like one of those things where the coach might decide, let's go back to what we were doing before.
All right, let's head into some injuries, and we have some big ones. I did use the phrase burying the lead earlier, and I should have saved it because we did not choose to start with the injury to Connor McDavid, mostly because we haven't seen lines yet. Actually, our first two injured people, Ross Colton and Connor McDavid, we've not seen practice lines out from the teams yet, so we are a little bit in the wilderness here. Luckily, we have the great team at sorry. 2045. Lewis can't remember the name of Games Day tweets. Fortunately, we have the really talented crew at Game Day Tweets giving us all the information that we could possibly need. So as soon as we have an update, I'm sure we'll be able to find it there. You, of course, could search for Oilers. You could search for Connor McDavid's name, whatever approach you need to take. But I have a feeling as soon as there's information out there about McDavid's situation, it'll be all over hockey Twitter. I look at it mostly as just a downgrade for everybody. That means that Draisaitl moves up to line one. A side grade at best for the wingers there. It means that McDavid doesn't get to play on the power play. I just don't see it as a great opportunity for anybody, really. And maybe that's just my bitterness, because I think someone you actually like out of this situation is someone that I dropped last week before he finally started putting up a few points. So what do you think about our potential beneficiaries of the McDavid injury?
So McDavid got injured, and during the game, power plays happened. Person on that power play was Victor Arvidsson, and I know losing McDavid at even strength is a huge blow, but I remember times in short spurts when Arvidsson was actually healthy on LA and playing on power play one. He was a very valuable fantasy asset for those 2 weeks at a time that he was healthy. And I think there's a chance that at least while McDavid is out, he's going to be on that power play, and then he could provide some value to your fantasy roster.
Yeah, I guess sorry. I guess it is nice definitely to be on that top power play. Of course, the top power play without Connor McDavid is a little bit of a different animal than what we're sort of used to. Are you guys picking up that game noise?
I don't hear anything.
Okay. I guess the one thing that I worry about with Arvidsson is losing Draisaitl as his center. I think is a pretty significant downgrade. Beyond the top six, I don't look at Edmonton as being a team that has a lot of strength down the middle. So I guess that power play time. This is the age-old question, right? Do you want the top power play guy, or do you want the line one guy? Sort of. He's seeing a downgrade at even strength, but he's seeing an upgrade on the power play. So I could see it as sort of being averaging out to being about the same in terms of fantasy points. But, I think he also has shown that his early season low average is probably a bit of an aberration, and hopefully is heading towards the mean, as opposed to, still sort of struggling. I did see a tweet from Jason Greger, just to put things in context, after McDavid had this injury, off the opening faceoff. I think he only played like 37 seconds in the game. The Oilers are 32nd in goals by forwards with 15 total. They are last in goals for per game played. They only won 8.9% of games when scoring 2 goals or left. So there is some concern about whether the Oilers can succeed in McDavid's absence. Hopefully, it will be a short absence. But if he wanted to still be out the week that I have to play against his owner, I guess that would be okay. But that's just me being a little bit selfish there. Some other injuries worth discussing. We mentioned before the injury to Ross Colton. Again, we haven't seen how things will turn out. We saw Kovalenko fill in that spot during the game, but as Shams pointed out, don't always want to necessarily think that whatever they are adjusting on the fly is what they're going to do come real game time. So that would be another, I think, watch those lines. And, if you're interested, jump on that. At least that would be my thinking. But how do you feel about Kovalenko?
We all jumped on Ross Colton because he got that deployment and then did something with it. I think that if Kovalenko gets that deployment and then does something with it, then I think that's the time to actually do something about this deployment.
All right, that makes sense, and yeah, I think waiting on some results maybe is going to be something that is better to go a little bit slower. I thought last night, I thought maybe it was going to be a pause the pod. I can't even say it here. Let's try that again. I thought last night maybe it was going to be a pause the pod type moment, but I was talked off of that a little bit. But just maybe just a guy, as you say. Whereas Colton was really achieving very nicely. One last injury to talk about: Frederik Andersen with some sort of mysterious lower body ailment. No big surprise there. We've seen that happen time and time again. It's usually just a matter of waiting to see when it's going to happen. Sorry. It's okay. Okay. I don't even remember. Okay, I'll just say reset Andersen. 27:45. Whew. I mean, a lot of this is going to get cut because I've had a lot of edit points. It's been that kind of day. So one other injury of note, Freddie Andersen has a mysterious lower body injury, some kind of ailment. We're not exactly sure what it is. They said he just felt a little odd after his game and is now out for the time being. Set your watch, obviously, to that Andersen injury. How do we feel about the potential of Peter Kochetkov getting a boost in his fantasy value here?
I think that if Kochetkov is available, pause the pod for Kochetkov. I mean, the whole reason that you're not interested in Carolina goalies is because it's a 50-50 situation. And sometimes they don't let in the most amount of shots. But if it's a 25 shots against type of, goalie, and you're most likely going to get the win on any given night, that's valuable in almost all fantasy formats.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm a little hesitant, as you said, a little bit of concern about, what happens if they only allow 19 shots and he lets, 3 of them in. That makes for an ugly outcome. But I think in discussing this with you, I have become a little bit more convinced. I do like the idea of, having him not really have a whole lot to compete with. And, those shots have been a little bit higher. We looked at the average and it was about 25 shots a game. He's only at 50% quality starts, but it's very early in the season. And he hasn't been, much of a, we're working with a 4-game sample here. So I don't want to say that we've, establish the line on Kochetkov in terms of his quality of play. He did have one really bad start in there too. I'm not also ready to say that a quarter of his games are going to be really bad starts. So a few more games here, and I think we can pass judgment a little better. But yeah, I think a really good opportunity for him if you need a goalie on your team, like maybe you are ready to kick Sam Montembeault and his 5 saves and 5 goals against this afternoon against Seattle to the curb. That could be a place that you would want to look at least for a while you've got that injury happening. So one last quick ouchery. Barkov owners. I know he doesn't play again until Friday, and so some folks were going to stash him on injured reserve. But he came out flying. He had a goal and an assist. That goal was quite nice off the post and in. That was one I actually got to see live. So that was a happy moment there. Yeah, just kind of back to his old self. So if you had Barkov, a good opportunity. Thoughts on Anton Lundell, who is having such a nice, little mini streak here during the Barkov injury? Is he cooked? Do we hang on to him? What are our thoughts there?
So I think that even though we got an assist in that game where Barkov came back, I think it's time to say thank you for your service and say goodbye to Anton Lundell because he's playing third line center.
Yeah, it's just not the kind of deployment that you want. Certainly, we've seen the depth scoring from Florida be something that's been very useful to them in the past. But yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to maybe jump on a new hotness somewhere out there and enjoy their production, because Lundell is going to be stuck in deployment hell for a little while here. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll get back with some hot and cold streaks. You're listening to Short Shifts. All right, got an ad break here. Any thoughts as we head into the last third here? Hopefully pretty quick.
How am I doing?
Sounds great, man. I've enjoyed it a lot. I hope people watching the show will be able to tell maybe a little better than me. But hopefully you guys have been enjoying it so far as well. Man, just a lot of crazy games here. 8-1, it looks like, from Ottawa over St. Louis. They got one goal from the second power play. St. Louis did.
I guess
Shams is. That one's over. That stupid Farabee empty net goal. I guess I got an empty net goal too. I can't complain too much. Shams is saying Fiala is scratched for the Kings game.
Do you want to quick add that to somewhere or like?
I don't know what to make of it. Do we?
Taking bad penalties.
Oh.
The coach benched him for taking 2 bad penalties in a row, and then I guess now he's scratching him.
Oof. Yeah, I think we'll leave it for Thursday. Let the Thursday guys cover it. We've got hot and cold streaks. I think we should just keep it moving here. I do want to look real quick and see Joey Decord's last couple games here.
Well, he just won 7 or 8-2 against.
He sure did. Oh yeah. So he's got he's got nice fantasy points, although they're just giving up a ton of shots, it looks like. Okay, great. All right. Let's get restarted here. It is 33, let's say 34.
All right, sounds good. Let's get back to let's go back to my notes and stuff, looking at the goals. There we go.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. Trev, let's jump through a couple hot and cold streaks as we go. Let's start with maybe the coldest of cold streaks for the whole season. Georgiev, he's cooked, right? We can be done with him. Is it time to throw him onto the heap? I saw Kaapo Kähkönen has cleared through all of his red tape and business, and he's ready to report to the team. Obviously, we've seen Eustace put up a couple nice games. Georgiev couldn't even beat Chicago. Like, we're done with him, yeah?
Yeah, you drafted Georgiev because you thought he was going to get, 55, 60 games, even if he was not the greatest goalie. And now he's, you know, the backup at best, a 50-50 if he starts getting back on track, and that's not worth holding on your roster.
Yeah, certainly you don't want the 50-50 in general, and you definitely don't want the portion of the 50-50 who is performing terribly. And I think, yeah, he could see himself really lose out on some starts here or be, exiled to the A to try and get his game back like Tristan Jarry was. But those two just really rough. We can at least Sam Montembeau occasionally has put together something halfway decent, but yeah, it's just been ugly stuff for some of these goalies. Hopefully, you didn't spend too much on any of them. And then we've got some hot players and cold players who haven't gotten a ton of airtime. We'll go through the hot players pretty quick, just because I don't think any of them are going to be available to you. But I will start with a guy near and dear to my heart, Kirill Kaprizov. In 9 games, he has 5 goals and 13 assists. He has 15 primary points of his 18 total points. That's just crazy. He is right in the middle of the play all the time. Registered a point. This is not individual points percentage. This is of all the Wild goals. He has been part of 52, almost 53% of them. And the Wild are winning 12-4 with him on the ice at 5v5. This is all courtesy of Dmitry Filipovich on Twitter. This was a guy who I really talked up during the offseason, especially once I found out I was drafting 7th. It was, someone who, if one of the, if I wasn't going to have, for some reason, a Kucherov or a Pasternak fall to me, I wanted to grab Kaprizov. Just what he put together late last season, once apparently this hand injury that he had healed. He was like in Cupful maybe an 8 or 9 fantasy points a night player on average through pretty much the second half. Just really nice stuff. And so I love to see him pick it up and keep going. I was very happy to grab him. I thought that maybe he and Rantanen belonged in kind of a mini tier of their own, along with Draisaitl. The only thing I think I got wrong about that was that Draisaitl doesn't belong in the same rarefied air as they do. Although, as Patty points out in the chat, the last time McDavid was out, Leon won the Hart Trophy. So maybe we haven't seen the best of Leon Draisaitl yet this season. But nice work, Kaprizov. Of course, he's going to be owned in your league. And I would not probably go and offer a trade for him at this moment because his multi-point nights just keep coming and keep coming. So maybe not one to go for quite in this moment. Another guy who has just been on an unbelievably hot streak. Tell us about what Kyle Connor has been up to besides burning up the stat sheet.
So Kyle Connor, let's see, pull him up a second. Sorry. $14 points, 9 games. Some of that is off the back of an on-ice shooting percentage of 18%, and most elite lines put up 13% at most. So he's riding the shooting percentage bender. He's riding the his own personal shooting percentage bender, and yeah. That being said, he's shooting 30% on the power play, and watching the game last night, it looks like he might. Sorry, can we restart Kyle Connor?
Yeah.
All right.
Already, go for it.
All right. So Kyle Connor is putting up, huge points, 14 points in 9 games. I don't think it's super sustainable. He has an on-ice shooting percentage of almost 19%. He's got a personal shooting percentage at all strengths of 22%. And that probably is going to come down. That being said, a lot of it's coming on the power play. And I think Brian was mentioning on the Mega Show that, maybe there are a couple guys in the league that can shoot 30% on the power play. And maybe that can, you know, continue Kyle Connor's hot streak if he can continue doing that.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll continue to see quite these numbers, but really exciting stuff from Connor. Just has been playing at a super elite level and making the Jets a great team. That scoring has just been so effective and so coming from up and down the lineup, but obviously a lot of it up there with that top line. So that has made them a really fun team to watch. One more player to mention, Nick Suzuki. And yeah, Trev, take the lead on this guy too. Tell us a little bit about Nick Suzuki's hot performance so far.
So I think Nick Suzuki's hot performance has a lot to do with Cole Caulfield's hot performance. He's attached at the hip at both even strength and on the power play. And when Cole Caulfield is shooting 33%, then and Nick Suzuki is going to be involved in a lot of his points. When Cole Caulfield stops shooting 33%, it's some of those points are going to go away, I think.
Yeah, I think a regression to the mean there is likely, but on the plus side, maybe what we'll see is Caulfield is shooting a bit more. So hopefully that'll make up a bit for the shooting percentage regression there. But yeah, I would see those guys as folks who may potentially fall off a little bit. All right, let's get into three cold defensemen that I think are kind of interesting. You brought up Keandre Miller, Darnell Nurse, and Charlie McAvoy. We can talk a little keep or drop here with those gentlemen. Anyone you want to kind of start with in particular?
So I think I'll start with both Keandre Miller and Nurse, because both of those guys were peripherals defensemen who you drafted late-ish in your drafts, and you expected some offense, but you wanted the peripherals to, carry their fantasy value. And they're providing the peripherals, but the offense just hasn't been there. And for Keandre Miller, I think that the offense is actually going to come. He's sitting at 18% for his points participation. And, a normal offensive defenseman, or, with a defenseman with some offense, usually is in on about a third of the points for when he's on the ice. So I think he probably deserves to be in a couple more assists. And I think that might actually be enough to make him fantasy relevant. On the flip side, I think Nurse, despite the name value, I think he might be just a guy this year.
Hear me. I didn't have my mic unmuted. What was the last thing that you said? I'm sorry.
I said that Nurse might be just a guy this year.
Yeah, I think so. Looking at those cold defenders, the one who stands out kind of to me, I think, to make a potential bounce back is Charlie McAvoy. He's in a spot where, if Boston can get it together a little bit more, obviously they were shut out today by Sam Ersson and Philly, which is not a great outcome. I imagine that is, not feeling great in the Boston locker room. But of that list, I certainly like Charlie McAvoy as the one who is most likely to bounce back. I could see the other two being definitely waiver fodder, and you didn't spend much on them, so I wouldn't worry too much about kicking them to the curb. McAvoy, likely you invested a little bit more in, even though he's not necessarily a huge periffs guy, but having access to that Boston power play makes him interesting. Certainly, he is more than your more than your Adam Boquist, someone who is just there to sort of be the fifth person on the ice. So yeah, I'm not ready to move on from McAvoy yet. The others don't mind if they hit the pavement for my team if I was holding on to them and looking for something a little more interesting. Whew. And with that, sir, I think we have hit the end of our short shift. Thanks so much for joining me. It was really a blast. I look forward to seeing what some of the, as you say, accountability items are going to be for our takes here during the episode. If you enjoyed the show, folks, please consider joining the Keeping Karlsson patron group at keepingkarlsson.com/patron, where you can play in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, the Cupful. You can interact with Brian, Elon, Trev, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented managers on our active Discord server. Check out GameDayTweets.com to get all the best info from Twitter without actually having to go on Twitter, including, as we mentioned, team by team and searchable tweets by player name. I imagine people will be looking for some information about Edmonton Oilers tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. Please visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short. Thanks, everybody in the chat, for hanging out with us here this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trev, for joining us. And may all of you have a great rest of your fantasy night without people getting a bunch of points against you on empty net goals, which is making me want to tear my hair out. Some podcast boost. I shake my fist. Farabee with a goal and John Karlsson with an assist. I couldn't get Ovi in for another one. Ovi should be going for the hat trick here. They should be giving him the puck every time there's an empty net. He's got a record to chase, guys. Clock is ticking.
Someone streamed Farabee? That seems... Why?
Yeah, because he was going to get an empty net goal. The tonic of my team will make any player into a champion. It made Brendan Montour into someone who could blow out Kaprizov and Ovechkin's totals tonight. It's just how it's been going, unfortunately. They love to show it against my guys. I'm everybody's Super Bowl here in Tier 3 for Alunta, I guess. God, but hopefully we'll start to turn things around here a little bit. I would love to get my first win here. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I'm going to end the stream here. Have a great night. And Trev, stay in there for a second until I can confirm that your audio is uploaded. Okay.
Sounds good.